dog was coming home with me, and I had to somehow now break this news to my husband. But I thought, this is going to restore order, because Grandpa, by the way, had been going crazy with that little bear. He was chewing up everything. He chewed up our wedding album. And I know, poor Grandpa. Grandpa was a special needs dog. That's why I had to name Grandpa. And finally, Jeff did name the dog Sophie Ma Barker Maslow after Pittsburgh's erstwhile mayor, and also because she howled like a crazy person whenever she was inside. I don't think she'd actually ever been inside. And I had to sort of train her, like, how to eat her food out of a dish. And I mean, I fell in love with that dog. And we would go out to the beach and we would run with the dogs. And it wasn't the same, but it was what it was. And I felt like we were ready to move on. And I felt that way until we did decide to leave. Because I just felt like, it's just been a real nightmare. And the idea was that my husband would go first, and then I would follow him when the school year was over, so that we could, have a nice, easy transition, both for my job and for him to find a job. It would give him time to look for a job. And again, I had the dogs with me. Some people kind of gave me the side eye, like, that's a little strange. And I was just like, oh, is it? It shows what you know. And then when he got back, he called me to tell me that actually he did want a divorce. He was ending our marriage over the phone from another country. Yes. And you guys, I know, if you feel shocked by that, imagine how I felt. I didn't see it coming either. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Hence the book, No More Gold People. But he, in a last-ditch attempt to try and salvage the marriage, I moved heaven and earth to get the dogs out of the country. We actually had a rendezvous planned. Because we were going to be apart for about 6 months, so I had planned 2 U.S. trips, and we had the first rendezvous coming up. And in 10 days, I got this approval that I needed from the Minister of Agriculture. I had to take the dogs, get their papers stamped. It was crazy. I had to buy the special permissions on the plane. There was one little problem, however. I was very worried. I mean, my friend Paul talked me through this whole thing. He was a vet. In fact, he was one of the people that had convinced me that we could have our dogs with us, because he had this big black dog that he had had in Abu Dhabi, he'd had in Dubai, and he really knew the ropes of like how to get a dog in, and apparently also how to get a dog out. And he talked me through getting the Ministry of Agriculture to give me approval. He basically said, you go there with your dogs. You don't tell them the breed of your dog, because they actually have unacceptable lists of dogs, and they would destroy your dog if they thought it was an unacceptable dog. And so he's like, say that it's a black lab. I'm like, it's a Rottweiler and a German Shepherd, or no, well, Saluki. They knew Salukis. The German Shepherd was my other dog. But I was like, nobody's going to buy that. And he's like, they don't have any idea. And he was right. They were like, black lab. And he said, if they start to give you any trouble, you just offer to bring the dogs out of the crate in their office. So I had actually taken the dogs in there, and they were big dogs, in their crates up into their office. And the guy was like, no, we have to study the paper. And he was starting to give me this bureaucratic thing, and I was like, let me take the dog out of the crate. And bam, bam, he stamped those papers like you wouldn't believe. And, it was amazing. Nobody could believe that I got the dogs sorted in such a short period of time. And again, this was really I wanted to see my husband. I couldn't believe that this was it, although part of me knew. And that he wasn't kidding. Probably because when I said I don't want a divorce, he said, well, this is not negotiable. Anyway, so I take the dogs with me, to the airport, and Paul comes along. Like, great guy. It's the middle of the night. He offers not only to drive me, but he and his wife and their daughter also come so that we could put one dog in their crate in one car and the other dog in their crate in the other car. By the way, I was using for Sophie the crate that I'd used for Little Bear, because you can't just buy stuff like that in Qatar, right? And I get to the airport, and it's a smidge too small. And the guy's about to deny me travel. But because we're in Qatar, and it so happens that Paul is Canadian, but his wife is a Filipino, and she's carrying their baby. Well, they assume, of course, that his wife is our maid, and she's carrying our baby. And when he starts to shake his head and tell me that that he's going to deny travel, I had been withholding tears because, like, when we lost the dogs, I had just gone into overdrive. Like, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get the dogs, and I just started to wail in the terminal. I was like, and as if on cue, the dogs started to howl. And the baby started to cry. And Paul started to laugh. And he did a really good job of doing like, I feel like you couldn't really tell, but I do. And the guy, once again, boom, 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 stamped everything, and off it went. And when I got to Washington, D.C., I could see that actually they had replaced Sophie's crate with a plywood construction. They actually made her a new crate.
Wow. I
never did see Little Bear's crate again. And the other thing that happened in the whole process was I had always felt like my husband, one of the things that drew me to him was that he seemed to inhabit this universe where things just worked out. And I felt like, as with our marriage, as with going to Qatar, getting the job as the editor of the paper, as with being able to advance his career as a freelance foreign correspondent by going to Qatar, things just sort of worked out in his universe. And I wanted to be in that universe. And what I realized on that trip home was that I'd always been in that universe. And I had sort of given the responsibility over to him because there was Paul to help me get to the airport. And then in DC, when I get there, I've got giant crates and I've got, like a year's worth of luggage. And I didn't know how I was going to get from point A to point B. And people just rushed to help me, doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And so I finally made my way back to Pittsburgh, and I had decided at this point that I actually wasn't going to give the dogs to Jeff. I was going to have my friend keep the dogs for me. Well, screw him, he never even asked about them.
Exactly.
Right? I know!
Yeah.
I know! I knew exactly what I'd do. I'd move to New York City, and I'd write a book, and that's exactly what I did. Woo!